Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Darian Jones. I'm the Digital and Development Specialist here at Care Partners. We're here today with another hot topic. We're so excited to going to be sharing all about their different resources and talking to us a little bit about the different faces of caregiving. So we're going to get into that in just 1 minute. A couple of announcements from us. We are so excited to begin our reopening of our in-person programs. So it's a very slow process, but we're so excited to have a few different teams starting in a few months. And we do have a few teams have actually already restarted. So if you have any questions about that, about our reopening, always either visit our website and send us a message, or you can give us a call at 713-682-5995. You can also email us at info@carepartnerstexas.org. We'd love to hear from you, just what's going on in your life, and if there's anything that Care Partners can do to help you in your journey, wherever you're at. So I think with that, as I said, the topic today is going to be the different faces of caregiving. And I guess I'll mention really quick too. So we still have our online Common Ground support group. It's only meeting one more time online. So we're going to be meeting July 6th. And then we, as I said, we're just trying to shift our focus back to our in-person programs, and we're just super excited about it. But as we continue to do that, we're unfortunately going to have to phase out some of our online resources or our online programs so that we can put all of our energy into these in-person ones. So if you would like to join us for Common Ground on Zoom, either email us, check our website for information, or you can give us a call. And that Common Ground support group meets on Zoom on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. All right, so with that, we will get into the topic today. I'm going to welcome our guest. Oh, both of us. There we go. Hi, Charlene. How are you doing today?
Hello, how are you today?
Thank you so much for joining us. Would you mind telling us just a little bit about yourself? And then we'll talk about AARP.
Well, I am retired from the city of Houston. And my former position was director of Harris County Area Agency on Aging. And so I had an opportunity to really see and address many of the issues facing older adults in our county, but also nationwide, and the common threads that were there. Whether you were talking about access to services, available services, in-home services, institutional care, and of course, caregiver support services is one of the critical areas. I, after retiring, started volunteering with AARP in Houston, and found that very interesting and very helpful, because it gave me the opportunity to serve in an advocate role and to do more advocacy work on policy issues that were facing older adults and their caregivers. And I still continue to volunteer with AARP as well as with some other organizations as well.
That's wonderful. Well, we are so excited to have AARP as one of our community partners. We know that you all provide such wonderful resources. You have a really great website and just a bunch of different things that you all provide. Would you mind telling me a little bit about AARP?
AARP is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, social mission-driven organization whose mission really is to help people 50 plus live their best life and to help them choose the way they want to live. They do that through a membership-based organization, through its membership, in providing information, products and services, advocacy, and education.
Yes, and as I said, you have so many amazing resources, educational and just support services as well. And like you, there's plenty of opportunities to volunteer, right? Would you mind telling us?
So many opportunities.
Yeah.
AARP and its recruitment of volunteers really looks for people in a variety of areas. Some may be advocates who work on state and national legislative issues And they do that through communicating with our elected officials, our legislators, and congresspersons on those priority issues that AARP has established. We have so many volunteers who work locally, who provide support to informational forums, community fairs, or other kind of activities that AARP deems as a part of its platform for educating people in the various issues of facing 50 plus population. So we're always looking for volunteers.
Yes, and I put the link up there on the screen if anybody wants to go check out their website. I believe they can find information about volunteering there
Certainly
as well.
can.
Now, do you want to tell me a little bit more about what caregiving is?
Well, I will start with saying a lot of people don't see themselves as caregivers. They're just doing what needs to be done. And we certainly look at as caregiver as a person who is providing critical support to other adults. In most cases, is where AARP is focused, to help them with needed activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, meal preparation. In some cases, it may be with training, medical support, and the administration of medications and other things that, again, helps them to live a quality of life to the extent that they're able to do so. And caregivers do it in a variety of ways. There are a number of different types of caregivers. There may be full-time caregivers who do this day in and day out. There may be caregivers who work and are juggling their schedules to do what support their needs. There may be caregivers who handle certain aspects for the care recipient. Maybe the financial management. It may be the caregiver who just drives that person to the physician's office or dental office or down to shopping or whatever. So they serve in a variety of capacities, but their role is crucial to maintaining the well-being of the care recipient.
Yes. And let me see.
And let me just say, sometimes, excuse me, it really is very helpful. During the pandemic, we've talked a lot about social isolation. And even as the pandemic, diminishes to some extent, we still look for caregivers who may be just companions in terms of providing that emotional support and social support and camaraderie for those individuals.
Yes, and I believe that the socialization aspect is so important.
Critical. It is very critical.
Would you mind telling us about how many caregivers there are in America?
Well, there are estimated 40 million, and those are the ones that are identified. I would imagine there are many, many more out here who are performing that role or serving in that role, but just have not identified themselves as family caregivers.
I know that when I first joined this organization a couple of years ago, I believe the statistic was for every one person receiving care, there was 7 people taking care of them. And that's unpaid family caregivers.
Unpaid, yeah. And particularly where you have large families and each person decides or they work out a system where they all perform critical roles, depending on what they're able to do. And that's important. We did that in my family as well. People, we all have different strengths and capabilities. And so we decided who would be best to serve in various capacities.
Exactly. And then do you happen to know how much money this all equals to in free care?
Well, I had that figure right in front of me. But let me get that figure again for you. The value, I must say, is very critical, because if you had to pay these individuals, it would be at a large amount.
Definitely
And
in the millions. And I think I
yeah,
have the figure here.
um,
About $470 million.
70 million. Yeah, I saw it, $470 million. And, we really underestimate, and sometimes I think family members underestimate when other family members are providing this service, what it really would cost if they had to pay someone to come in and perform those tasks and skills.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a really large amount. And
It
as
is.
you
It
said, I
really
think
is. And we don't think about it, um, we talk about people coming into the homes or work that's done in the home. I know about uh, family members when they do so much, and we say, well, your family member, da da da. But if you had to pay for someone to do those types of functions, you would really appreciate what that individual is contributing to the well-being of the care recipient.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me to what my next question is about the caregiver experience. So caregivers experience so many different things. Do you happen to know how many family caregivers there are in Texas?
Well, there are 3.4 million, and that's quite a bit in Texas. But again, those are the ones that we can identify. I'm sure there are many, many more who are not captured in this number.
Yeah, I believe in just a few minutes, we're going to talk even a little bit more about exactly what defines a caregiver and how you can identify if you're a caregiver or not. But we'll continue to talk about the caregiver experience just for a few more minutes. Not only is the cost extremely high for care, but do you know how many hours go into providing this unpaid family care?
Quite a few numbers. And again, I had that figure. So we'll have to come back to that one.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, let's come back to that one.
And I know that not only are caregivers, it's not the only thing that they do. Caregivers also have generally, especially more and more nowadays, they also have families that they're caring for. So either small children or other adult children, or even just their spouse or anything like that. And I believe the number is right now, it's 1 in 6 employees are caregivers. And increasingly it's becoming younger and younger. So millennials and Gen X.
That's exactly right.
And so it's definitely an issue that affects everyone, because one thing that Care Partners talks about, at least, is we provide workshops for the working caregiver, because we know how hard it is to get away, but they still need those resources and support.
Yeah.
And so
for many people, their caregiver journey starts with a crisis. And you don't think about it until you realize that, okay, my mother or father or whomever cannot come home unless there's a support system there to help them. And so that's why I really appreciate the work that you all do and what AARP is doing to really help people and arm them with information, education, tools that will help them in this caregiver journey. Because so many of them, they don't have a clue as to the resources that are available.
Exactly. And so I guess we'll talk a little bit more about who caregivers are and what actually makes someone a caregiver. Can you help us define what a caregiver is and tell us some of the things that make someone a caregiver?
But again, they're an individual, and although they may not see themselves as a caregiver, but they're that person that's providing critical support to the care recipient so that they can live a quality life. Again, that may be meal preparation, dressing, It may be transportation. It may be helping them with the management of their finances. It may be someone who's doing all the housework in terms of keeping it clean and things of that nature. So it's an array of things that may be doing, but it's all directed toward helping that individual um, stay in their home or to just be a part of a network of support and
Mm-hmm.
not be isolated.
Mm-hmm. And I think, like you keep saying, sometimes people will be doing things like helping get even their helping even getting help even helping getting their loved one get dressed could be
Right.
considered a caregiving task. And so
Yes.
therefore you are a caregiver,
Yeah.
even if you're just doing some of these things that we think
Hmm.
are simple or mundane.
Right.
It makes you a family caregiver.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, many people will help with, say, call a particular an older individual to see if they need anything from the store, and they'll do the grocery shopping and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's a critical function that needs to be performed. So it really is. The gamut is, there in terms of tasks and, to be performed as a
Mm-hmm.
caregiver, you know.
And you may not even be someone that you're related to. We've heard many times where a neighbor will take the time to go and check on their other neighbor and see how
Hmm.
they're doing and provide care that way. So
That's right.
it's a very broad definition, I
It
would
is.
say.
It really is. And because many people don't see it as a caregiver providing care, they do it because they are concerned or it's just what they like doing, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, it really is a very broad range of tasks and functions that are performed, and whether or not those individuals see themselves as providing care or a caregiver, it is a part of that continuum of support that's needed.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going back to some of these figures really quick, but um, it says that there's about 40 million family caregivers in America at the moment, and about 1 in 4 of those are millennials. So, as we were kind of saying, caregivers are becoming younger and younger as we are living older and older as a population. More people are going to need care. And so, all of these numbers are expected to grow. And so, having resources like AARP and then what we do at Care Partners is going to become even more important as time goes on. So we're just so
The other
grateful.
important part of that is you talk about some of the younger caregivers. You know, you have many older children now that don't live in the same geographic
Mhm.
areas of their parents and the older family member. So that poses additional challenges to a care recipient in receiving some level of caregiver support. And it's important that organizations like AARP and certainly yours helps those individuals with identifying resources that may not be geographically close to them at that point in time.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so going into a little bit more about the Texas caregivers, there at the moment is about 3.4 million family caregivers in Texas. That's a lot of people. And between all of those family caregivers, it says that about 2.9 billion hours, billion with a B, is being spent on this unpaid family care. And I believe we had that number of,
Right.
it comes out to about $470 million. So those are really big figures. And all of that is just between either family members or volunteers or just people who are giving their time and they're not getting paid for it. So there is this huge, just open filling almost open space of people who are providing this care.
All right. And
Um,
the other part of that is when we look at who are caregivers, 3 and 5 of those are women who are
mhm,
providing the care. And of course, they are probably juggling other responsibilities as well.
absolutely. As we were saying earlier about the working caregiver.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
you may have a job, you may have your family, and you may be caring for a loved one It can be a lot to juggle.
Or you may be a couple. I was in a restaurant yesterday and there was a couple celebrating, I think, 69 years. And, it's just so, I don't know, it's just very touching when you see older couples and one may have some level of disability and the other one is supporting that person. But we have a lot of older caregivers that are taking care of their spouses.
Yes, and we do see that all the time here as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
It's just really beautiful to see how
It is.
much
It really
they
is.
love each other and care about each
Hmm.
other, and just
Very,
seeing
very
the love.
precious. Yeah, it is. It is.
um, so, with all of this need out there, can you tell us a little bit about some of the resources that AARP can provide?
AARP, and I think you put up on the screen the Prepare to Care document, which is a excellent resource document that really walks you through the steps in terms of your caregiving role. AARP has online some information that looks at different areas in terms of finance, legal matters, um, care in the home, and advocacy as well. They have workshops or sessions, and of course, during the pandemic, we've had online programs to really touch on this subject and to help people with some of the questions that they have in terms of where do I go? And that's probably the number one question a lot of people, once they have learned that they're going to have to do this caregiving responsibility, have it, that where do I go? Where do I turn? And so we want to make sure that, and AARP recognizes that there are various subpopulations where, although we're all talking about caregiving, the caregiving issues may be a little bit different in terms of accessing those services, the availability of those services. Certainly, when we talk about the rural areas, they may not have, available all of the resources that we may have here in Texas. But if for where we can do,
Mm-hmm.
provide online education and training and other mailings that will
Mm-hmm.
help them, this is what we do. But it's a wealth of resources, and I would encourage everybody to really visit aarp.org/Houston so that you will, number one, know what's going on in the Houston area that may be of benefit, and then to look at the types of resources that are available um, online. And hopefully, when we get back to doing programs in the community, you will have the opportunity to come attend those and pick up materials that are available.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other thing that I have to say, and I know you appreciate this as well, we really stress caregivers taking care of themselves.
Absolutely.
We think it is critical. We talk about respite all the time, and people will say, "Well, I don't have time. I don't know," but you have to take time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you all talk about that in some of your programming as well. And so we also look at that aspect of caregiving. You're no good to a care recipient if you cannot maintain great health, and
Mm-hmm.
well-being, and a positive outlook in terms of your mental health.
Absolutely. And that was pretty much what I was going to wrap it up with, was ask a question about what is some of the emotional impact that caregivers go through. And then I believe you were a caregiver yourself, correct?
Yes, I
So
was.
what were some of your personal experiences or emotions that you felt through the journey?
Well, I was a long distance caregiver. My father lived in Florida. Um, but I was fortunate in that, because of my experience with the Area Agency on Aging, I kind of knew resources to pull on and things to look for and how to set things in motion. And so I was able to do that. I have other siblings, And of course, we're all scattered. And despite our really efforts to get my daddy to move with one of us, that was not an option for him. He wanted to stay in his home, which again, um, we must also treat our care recipients with respect and help them where they are, if they're able to make informed decisions, to allow them to do so if it's in their best interest. And so, although it was frustrating for us, certainly for me, that's what he wanted. And so we would try to respect that to the extent that we could. Certainly, anxiety is out there, and sometimes you get a little down, depressed, because maybe things happen that you had not anticipated. And when you're dealing with people who are living in their own homes, many of these older adults are in older structures. And, there's always a need to repair, replace, or something of that nature. Um, Sometimes you feel like that you're alone in this journey as a caregiver. And so you go through that kind of seesaw, you're juggling acts. I used to get on the plane, go to Pensacola, come back, go, and of course I had help with, from other siblings, but there are a host of issues. And if you can imagine being a working caregiver with a family with little ones, that you have to attend to their needs, do homework, things of that nature, and have your spouse, um, it just adds to some of the challenges that you face emotionally. And some days you just want to scream, cry, or
Yeah.
whatever. But it's okay. In my mind, it's okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
because you need to release that. And again, I think respite is so important to caregivers, um, and for them to realize and not feel guilty. You can't do it all, that you need to take care of yourself and allow other family members, if they are able and willing to do so, to do some part of that caregiving. You know, no one will be able to do it just like you do. And that's why, a lot of times we think, well, mother doesn't like the way she does this, so I have to do it. Well, sometimes you just have to let that go and let someone else help you. So I think that's some of the emotional issues that you go through. And of course, I always was very thought I was very thankful and fortunate that I had the opportunity to have this caregiving journey with my dad, because um, to me, I got to know him better. I had more opportunities to just have conversations with him and learn so much information that I didn't know before, and it made him feel better to know that that was that loving and attentive care, um, that as he grew older. And so he passed in March with 96, but he
Wow.
lived a very wholesome life.
Yeah, I think it's very important to remember also that um, Alzheimer's, dementia, this kind of type of disease, it doesn't discriminate against anyone. And that's why we have so many different types of caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing that all caregivers can relate to is some of these feelings of being overwhelmed, and of guilt, and of not knowing where to turn. And so I think that's why it's also just so important, like you said, to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing we also always encourage is try to find a support group where people know exactly what you're going through. And so that's just something I always like to suggest as well.
That's so true. And I always say, seek out help when you realize what are the resources that you're going to need. Um, Go to people who have that experience and that knowledge. Of course, you will always have those individuals in the community and family that can give you the best advice.
Yeah.
But every caregiving experience is different. And so what worked for Mrs. Jones' mother may not necessarily work for your mother. It's different situations and things of that nature. So
Mhm.
I strongly urge people. We are fortunate in Houston. We have so many organizations. This is what they do, and this is what they do well.
Mhm.
So be sure to tap into the resources that they have available.
And I do believe that AARP's been providing online workshops as well,
Yes,
correct?
that's
Right.
what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Because during the pandemic, we've been doing that. AARP also has a caregiver podcast that
Mm.
we do. So when you go to aarp.org/Houston, you can put in podcast. And we talk about different caregiving issues, um, and other things that are related to caregiving as well. Just now, everybody's talking about hurricane preparedness.
Mhm.
And so we wanted to make sure that people who are serving in a caregiving role know how to access resources and what to do when you have to evacuate or remain in your home during the
A
disasters
storm.
and the
Mhm.
storms. Yes.
Yes.
Hmm.
And it's so super important information. So I'm glad that you all are covering that. And that's just
Yes.
one example of the many things that AARP has talking about resources about on their website. So definitely
Yeah.
go give them a visit.
And we
And
have fun with a purpose. They like to call it fun with
mhm,
a purpose. So we also have opportunities for online exercise programs, dance classes. Again, some of these to really help people to just relax and enjoy themselves. It's been very hard this past year on all of
mhm,
us. And so ARP wants to make sure again that they're doing programming and educational components that will help people and inform people and keep them educated, particularly on legislative and congressional issues that
mhm,
impact caregiving and the health and well-being of 50 plus population.
absolutely. I guess if there's just anything else you'd like to say or add, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up for today.
I can't say it enough that although many people don't see their role as a caregiver
Mhm.
and don't think of it as caregiving, um, Rosalind Carter in her institute, her caregiving institute, talks about the different types of caregiving that you're one, you may be one in the future, you'll take care of one, or at some point, you'll be involved in that task.
I really
And
like
so
that
it's
quote by her.
never too early to really start thinking about and talking with your family members or whomever you deem necessary about your wishes.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes, people don't like to talk about it, but things happen in life. And although we talk about the 50 plus population, it could be a 30 plus person. But talk about it with your family, engage in a discussion. And when we look at that Prepared to Care book, that's one of the things that it mentions, start the conversation, um, because things can happen in our lives and you just don't, family members in particular, don't really know where to turn. And
Mhm.
again, I think we're so fortunate in Houston, not only with the medical center, but with all of the social services and advocacy organizations that really address the issues of older adults and caregivers. And um, we talk about older adults, but this is really about family members of all ages because it impacts, as you have indicated, intergenerational homes where older people have moved in, and you have everybody there from a 2-year-old to maybe an 80-year-old.
Mhm.
So start the conversation about some of the issues. And it really does provide an opportunity to expose younger children to that interaction
Mhm.
with their grandparents, great grandparents, etc. And I think that in itself is very good.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think is also very important, or one thing that I think is really interesting, I guess. There's so much to learn from generations before you.
It is. It
and
is.
I think a lot of the time that slips through the cracks. And so I have loved being able to work with older adults and just listening to their stories and all of the knowledge and just everything that they know. It is just so interesting. And I think it's so important to remember all of that. So,
Well, they have a wealth of wisdom through
Mhm.
experience. And I always enjoy it because they also provide a reality check to you sometimes, and they're very truthful and honest
Mhm.
in their advice and other matters. So it is a joy many times,
Yes,
you know.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Well, I want to thank you so, so much for being here today. I'll put up this one more time to make sure that you absolutely go check out aarp.org/Houston and check out all these resources that we've talked about and more. I'm sure you can also learn about different types of caregivers and how many caregivers there are, because that's where we got a lot of our information for today. And so just thank you so much for being here, Charlene.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. And we will see you all again next time. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.